First of all, I want to say I'm deeply, deeply honored to be here. I'm also incredibly excited because I don't live in Canada anymore, and I don't get to come to campus very often. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to tell you, you should all know how incredibly lucky you are, because when I walk around campus today compared to what it was like in 1998 when I graduated, it is just so, so amazing. So I hope you're enjoying campus. I'm excited to be here. We're going to start out with me just sharing a little bit of my story and my background. What's my journey been like since I graduated? What have I built along the way? And then we're going to sit down and just have a chat and eventually go into Q&A. So whatever it is that you want to know, I'm going to try and tell you my story, but at the end of the day, it's about making sure that you all get what you want to get out of this. Okay. So before we start, just to lay out a few basic things about me, I'm a graduate of McMaster Engineering. I'm a graduate of Stanford. I'm the founder and CEO of Tonal, which I'm going to tell you all about today. I'm the proud father of 2 boys, which is a really, really big part of my identity and one of the things I look forward to at the end of my day. I'm a Canadian, I'm Egyptian, I'm a practicing Muslim. I filed 75 patents in my life, and I'm a Bitcoin hodler. I don't know if you know what that means, but it means that I've held Bitcoin forever. To be clear, that meant that I had the conviction to never sell it. It doesn't mean I had the conviction to buy a lot, which I regret. So that I'd like to actually just start with a video and just tell you a little bit about what Tonal is, which will give you a lot of context about where my life is today, where my career is today. But I'm actually going to spend a lot of today talking about the journey that led to this and what it took to get to this point. This was our ad that launched during the last holiday season that I'm about to play.
It's not. Everything you've seen me do was made possible by what you don't see. Because when you're not looking, I go to work. Shrimp isn't a given. It's grown. It's burned and tested. Get tested some more. No matter who you are, or how far you've come, we all know there's always more work to be done. We all have the strength to see what's possible. It's up to us to unlock it. So, be your strongest.
So that's Tonal. That's the product that I started this company, and this is the product that we brought to market after years of innovation. It took 3.5 years to bring this product to market. It's now been in market for about 3 years. We've sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of this product, and it's just doing incredibly well in the market. It's considered the most innovative piece of fitness equipment ever created. It's used by professional athletes. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and how we led to that. So I'm actually going to start the story in 1976, which is actually before I was born, but a really, really pivotal moment in my life, which is when my parents decided to immigrate. And I'm going to kind of walk you through the progression of my education and my career. These are my parents, Dr. Soraya Aradi, my mom, and Dr. Ilsaid Aradi, my dad. Both of them are graduates of McMaster Engineering. Both of them did their PhDs here. And in fact, about halfway through their PhD programs, me and my twin sister were born right here at McMaster. And so we are very much a McMaster family through and through. I was born here. We were actually born premature, my sister and I. And one of the only reasons that we are alive today, that I'm here to talk to you about this, is because McMaster University, the hospital system over there, had one of the only neonatal ICUs in the country. And without that, doctors tell us there's just no way we would have survived. And so it's just incredible how so many things led to that. But my parents made the choice to immigrate to Canada. I was born here, and McMaster is really the root of where we are. My parents also being PhDs, my dad being a professor at the University of Michigan, my mom holding education to very, very high standards. That was always a priority in our life. I will tell you, fitness was not a priority in our life, and that's an important part of the theme. I was more the chubby kid with glasses who could code than the fitness fanatic. My parents started a business when I was young. I was actually assembling PCs in their basement when I was 10 years old. By the time I was 13, I wrote my first piece of software. A local bookstore had bought one of these computers, and they wanted an inventory management system. So I decided to build one for them. I knew nothing about business. I charged them $200, worked the entire summer, which I think works out to about 2 cents an hour. And then I remember the day after I delivered the inventory management system, they called me up and they said, "Hey, Ali, how do we do book returns?" And I'm like, "You never said anything about book returns." And they're like, "What do you mean? That's obvious. If you sell a book, you got to be able to return it." And then I had more work to do. And so a lot of lessons early on. Me and my sister were also very, very competitive. We actually graduated high school when we were 15 years old, which led us here to McMaster. At the time, we were living in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where my dad was a professor, and we applied to a whole bunch of schools, and we both agreed that McMaster was our favorite. We were accepted to schools in the United States and in Canada, and McMaster is just where our heart was. It's where we wanted to come back to. So we basically roll into McMaster. I'm a freshman in engineering, just a little bit over 15 years old, and especially coming from the U.S. education system, skipped OACs. And so here I am, my freshman year, I'm just literally just having my butt handed to me. It was really, really hard. And that was a wake-up call for me, and one of the first moments that I really started working hard. Graduated by age 19, and then, sorry, I kind of started into this. I come to McMaster, I graduate by age 19, and then from there, I move out to California, Silicon Valley. So I'm out in Silicon Valley, and I get my first job, but I also enroll in a master's program at Stanford. And that was a really, really interesting phase in my life because I learned a lot of things at Stanford that I didn't learn at McMaster. But in many ways, I also can't say that the education at Stanford was any more rigorous. The reason I chose McMaster in the first place is because I looked at the course load and I noticed that it was very, very deep, it was very, very technical, it was very, very intensive. And in fact, I learned so much at McMaster that by the time I went to Stanford, a lot of it felt repetitive, if I'm honest. I was taking classes where we were studying a lot of the same things. But the way that the education was different is it wasn't the technical content of the courses, it was the people that I was being exposed to. So when I was here at McMaster, I learned how DSL worked. When I was at Stanford, I met the inventor of DSL and got to have a really great conversation with him about DSL and cable modem technology and where all of that was going. And that has all changed now. The world has gotten a lot smaller. We have amazing innovation programs, and the world is getting a lot more connected. But back then, that was kind of what the experience was like. And so as I moved from here to California and ended up in Silicon Valley and started being exposed to more and more people, my thinking was constantly being challenged. And more I was thinking beyond the technology and I was thinking more about how it actually fit into the world. My very first job was at Hewlett-Packard, where I was designing this. Does anyone know what this is? Think back to 1998. Can anyone guess what this is, what this picture is? Anyone? It's a supercomputer, believe it or not. It's the size of a fridge. This was a small supercomputer, so this particular system was called Superdome, and you could string 8 of these cabinets together to basically make this really, really powerful computer. We sold them to the IRS, we sold them to NASA, and I worked on the computer chips that went into these supercomputers. And I did that for about 2 years. I was an entry-level engineer, and I realized a few things. One, I learned a lot of really, really great foundational skills. When you're a company the size of HP, you're literally running $50 million engineering programs to develop a product like this. Discipline is really important. Process is really, really important. Nothing fell through the cracks. But at the same time, it was really hard to get great opportunities as an entry-level engineer. I still remember there's this guy I worked with, and he was the lead architect on this program. And I asked the question, like, what is it going to take for me to one day get to do what you do, to be an architect? And he said, you're probably gonna have to wait 30 years. And the reason why is, like, people worked at this company for life. And it's not until they retire that someone else gets the opportunity to try that job. And so 2 years into designing computer chips, I've learned all of this stuff. And Silicon Valley, this is the late 90s. This is when the dot-com boom is happening. Venture capitalists are pouring money into the valley. And two of the engineers that I work with left HP and went and started a company. And I'm like, hey, good for you. Go have fun. That sounds amazing. I'm staying right here. I'm the most amazing engineering lab I've ever been in, doing amazing stuff. And a couple of months later, they called me up and like, hey, Ali, we raised $10 million. Will you come work with us? And I ended up joining this company called RedWave Networks. And the reason why there's a picture of Fry's Electronics on this slide is because that was actually my very first assignment. I was the first employee they hired. When I got there, there were no employees, there were no phones, there were no computers. And I remember showing up, and I go up to the founders of this company, and I say, hey, what do you guys want me to work on? And they're like, well, we have a bunch of work that we need to do. We need to architect the network switch, and we need your help architecting this network switch. So here's a pile of documents, standards you probably should go read. But we also have no phones and no computers, and we have a bunch more employees starting next week. So could you go over to Fry's and figure something out? So that was my very first day on the job. It's I'm going and loading computers into, and you just quickly learn that when you're on the ground floor of a company, no one has a real job description. You have things you're responsible for, but everyone does everything. I work at RedWave for about 2 years, and we build prototypes. We actually take a prototype. This is wireless network equipment. We take one of these prototypes. It's being deployed in a pilot study with one of the largest telcos in the country. And then one day, about 2 years later, we've spent about $10 million. The founders call everyone into a room, and they're like, hey, bad news, we ran out of money. Today's your last day. And I was kind of like, that was a moment in time where I'm like, well, now what? I was devastated. I poured 2 years of my life into this. And then a few weeks later, I got another job. And I got to work at this company called Kalia, which was an amazing, amazing learning experience for me. Because Kalia was actually started by the founder of a company called Sun Microsystems. Has anyone heard of Sun? Anyone? Anyone under 40? Okay. Sun Microsystems basically invented what we consider to be the modern day rack-mounted server. If you walk into a data center today and you see all of these computers clipped into these shelves, they invented that. They invented the computers that supported the internet in the late 90s. Their slogan is what we put the dot in the .com, right? So just really, really transformative company. The internet was built on Sun. And the founder of Sun Microsystems, after literally making billions of dollars at this company, he leaves the company and he decides he's starting this company called Kalia because he has this vision. And his vision is that video on demand is coming. And if we don't start building the equipment for video, to basically support video on demand, that was the massive opportunity, is building equipment that was built from the ground up in order to support video streaming services. So if you just tried to do that with regular old servers, like the servers that a company like Sun Microsystems would sell, that it would just be too expensive. The cost per stream would be too high. And so he wanted to go design and architect servers from the ground up that were designed fit to purpose for video streaming. This guy's named Andy Bechtolsheim. He's one of the most brilliant people I've ever worked with. And I watched him break rule after rule after rule. I thought I knew how to architect a system because at RedWave Networks, I architected a wireless telecom switch along with my boss and a few other engineers. And here I sit down with this guy, and almost every decision he makes, I'm like, you can't do that. And he's like, why not? I'm like, that's not how it works. He's like, but we're not using it in that way. We're using it in this other way. And of course we could do it that way as long as it works in the end. And he just challenged our thinking over and over and over again. And I learned a tremendous amount at this company. He was there for about 4 years. Eventually, Sun Microsystems woke up and realized, hey, this guy was right. We should buy his company. And we get sucked back into Sun Microsystems. We end up bringing this product to market, which is a 48 terabyte disk array. It's probably still one of the densest disk arrays ever created. And Andy's realization when he created this was that if you're going to stream video, you need to cram a lot of data into a very, very small footprint, and you got to make it really, really cheap. And that's exactly what this was. It was optimized in that way. It was optimized for small footprint, low power, really, really low cost per stream. And I end up at Sun Microsystems. I'm there for about 4 years. And then over there, I become really close friends with another senior engineer, principal engineer that I really, really respect. And one day we get this idea. We get this idea, and we're literally just hanging out over lunch, talking about it. And we decide that we want to go do a startup. We want to go pursue this idea. And the vision at the time, this was like 2006, the vision at the time is that computers were just becoming more and more complex and more unreliable. Like, I want you to, for a moment, suspend reality and rewind to a time when the iPhone didn't exist. Like, this is before the iPhone, okay? Computers, they sat on your desk. They were really, really complex. Laptops were starting to become a thing, but they were very, very expensive and also really, really complex. And IT departments were basically struggling to manage these computers. You'd hand someone a laptop, and managing the software on that laptop, like the amount of money that they would spend managing the software on that laptop over its lifespan, cost more than the actual computer itself. And we recognized that, hey, data centers, like we lived in data centers can serve out desktop computing. And so we invented this device called the Zero Client, which you see up over there. And that thing had no processor in it. It ran no software. It was a way for you to plug your keyboard, your monitor, and your mouse into a network and have your computer served out of a data center. And we invented this thing. We brought it to market. We grew the company for about 4 years to about 10 million in revenue. And in the exact same time that we were growing this business to 10 million in revenue, under the thesis that computing was going to centralize into the data center, Apple announced the iPhone in 2007, and they announced the iPad, I think, in 2011. And what was happening is the world was going in the complete opposite direction of our thesis. Our thesis was centralization, and people were like, oh, actually, you could, this is like a little supercomputer in your pocket. And I'm not even joking. This thing is as powerful as that supercomputer we designed in the late 90s. And things were becoming more and more distributed. Apps were becoming more distributed. And data centers were not being used the way we expected. And our thesis was wrong. And what ended up happening is the product was successful, but it was becoming more and more successful in very, very niche markets. Markets where security really, really mattered. Markets where controls really, really mattered. So very, very large government agencies I cannot name were using the product. Healthcare institutions were using the product because of privacy. But the idea that we were ever going to get this business to sell any more than $10 million a year of product, that was never going to happen. So we went off and decided to sell the company. And we went through this long, arduous process to sell the company, failed, went into bankruptcy, and then sold it in the last minute to Samsung, which absorbed our team. And then I went and worked for Samsung for a couple of years. And it's just like the ups and downs of creating a product that's just so incredibly innovative to realizing the world was headed in a completely different direction to then having to figure out how to exit a business like that. Right? That's what that journey was like. Meanwhile, during this entire period of time, I'm working on Pano. I'm now working at Samsung. They're putting me on an airplane every single month for a week. I'm going to Korea. And Seoul is an amazing place. Korea is an amazing place. I love it. But that travel back and forth was just destroying me. And remember that chubby kid with glasses who could code at age 7? He just kept gaining weight. And that was me probably, I don't even know how heavy I was at that point. But I'd become really, really unhealthy. And so 15 years of technology, supercomputing, telecom gear, and I basically come to this realization that I'd become really, really unhealthy. And so, and it's weird. Like, I remember I woke up the morning after Christmas one day, and I was thinking to myself, why is it that I'm successful at work? I'm successful at technology, but I can't seem to get my health in order. And I realized, like, I'm just the type of person where when I commit myself to something, when I make it my full-time job, I get really good at it. And when it's not my full-time job, I just kind of ignore it. And so I decided to make getting healthy my full-time job. And I quit my job. In 9 months, lost about 70 pounds. I became really, really passionate about fitness. And that's ultimately what led to Tonal. So, you take a step back and you have someone where, like, if you told me the day I joined HP and was walking through this supercomputing lab, just so excited to be there, thinking I was going to spend the rest of my career designing supercomputers, not knowing the twists and turns that I'd leave 2 years later and go to a startup that goes out of business and eventually start my own company that also didn't do so well, like not knowing any of that. If you came to me on that first day and said, one day you're going to be the CEO of the world's fastest growing fitness company, I literally would have fallen out of my chair laughing. Right? It's just not what I thought I was going to be doing. And here I am, I'm trying to get healthy. I'm watching what I eat. I'm going to the gym every single day. And a few weeks in, I'm on this piece of cardio equipment, really frustrated. Because a lot of people who do what I just said, watch what you eat, do cardio, you lose a little bit of weight, and then you plateau. You stop losing weight. And I'm frustrated, and I look over, and I notice that all the personal trainers, basically the experts who know what they're doing, they were all in the weight room, and I was in the cardio section, which meant I was in the wrong spot. And so I had to figure out how to strength train. How many people here strength train, by the way? Raise your hands, not to call you out. Okay, about half the room. How many of you do cardio but don't strength train? Okay, you should strength train. No, I'm not even joking. You should strength train, really. The science proves it. But I'm doing cardio. I have to walk into a weight room for the very, very first time, and it's intimidating. It's all these big, bulky dudes. You walk up to a rack of dumbbells. You don't really know what to do with it. You feel like a dummy. You do the obligatory bicep curl and bench press because that's what you see everyone else doing. And it's really hard. And it took me months to figure out how to do it effectively. And it eventually led me to my goal. I lost this weight. I got strong. I got passionate about fitness. But I've also come to believe that every single person needs a personal trainer if they're truly going to be successful with fitness. And if you think about it, everyone we want to be, celebrities, professional athletes, they all have trainers. Everyone who's successful generally has a guide or a coach in some form or another. And everyone we know who's struggling with fitness, well, they generally don't have a personal trainer. And so, like, literally, our mission at Tonal, one of the things that we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to put personal training in the hands of everyone. We're trying to democratize access to personal training, not by creating more humans who train people, but by actually creating machines that do that. And that's exactly what the Tonal piece of equipment is. But in order to make that happen, the very, very first thing I had to do was invent a weight system that didn't run on gravity, right? And that was the first piece of innovation at Tonal, is if you're going to allow a computer to train you, then you got to figure out how to make the weight, the force that you feel, the resistance that you feel, controlled by a computer, because the computer is the thing that's training you. And so I actually went off and invented the world's first digital weight system. And this is an interesting video because it's embarrassing because I'm in my pajamas. It's 2 a.m. in the morning when I filmed this. And it was the first time I got our digital weight system working. And it was just me, right? I had this idea. I was excited about it. I went home. I ordered some parts. They started arriving. And for weeks, I just started working on this thing. And it wasn't working for a long, long time. And then there's always that moment where you have that breakthrough. And so what you see there, if you just look at that line at the top, it's taut. I'm getting consistent tension. It's producing the exact same amount of force that I want. It's keeping up with me speed-wise. It's all the things that you need to produce something that runs like a weight machine. If you've ever pulled on a cable machine, it's kind of how they feel. And so what we effectively did at Tonal is we created a system that uses electromagnetics and electricity to generate force, but models the physics of a weight machine. So it feels just like a weight machine, but it runs on electricity and is controlled by a computer. And that's really what enables the system to run, along with dozens of sensors, which I'll talk about. So I'm going to start running you through the timeline and a little bit more of the story. But the very first challenge when you want to build something, I was like, great, I built that prototype strapped to my kitchen counter. Turning that into a business is a really, really long way to go. And the first thing that I needed, because knowing bringing hardware companies to market is really, really expensive, it takes millions of dollars, is you got to find believers. That's the most important thing. And I want to be clear because a lot of people ask me, like, how did you raise your first dollars? How did you get the first $250,000 into the business and then the next million and the dollars after that? Giving a guy $250,000 to turn a prototype in his kitchen into what he promises will one day be a multi-billion-dollar company, the decision to give someone that kind of money is an irrational decision, meaning it's an emotional decision. And so what you're really looking for are not investors who have run some spreadsheet math and believe this is a good investment. You're looking for people who can see the vision that you see, and you're looking for people who are going to believe that this is possible, that the world could change. And there was a moment in time where I knew I was going to land an investor because he was playing with the prototype, and he stops in the middle of a bicep curl, and he looks at me, and he says, Ali, when the world sees this, do you think anyone will ever strength train the old way again? And I'm like, that's a believer. He's going to give me money. I don't know how much or what terms, but he's going to give me money. And he did. The other thing you have to do is you have to be willing to just repeatedly prove things that people will never believe. Like, if I just walked into a room and said, hey, I'm going to make a weight system that runs on electricity, and they're like, wait, you're going to make a weight machine that doesn't have weights in it? Are you, seriously? And no one was going to take that for granted. No one was just going to accept that. So I had to prove it, right? And so building that prototype and then finding the believers, and then realizing that every time you take money into a business, if you're doing some sort of a venture-backed business where you're raising money, every time you build money, you have to use that money to build enough value that you can raise more money. In other words, if you're not constantly building the enterprise value of what you're building, you're not going to be able to raise the next round and then the next round and then the round after that. And so like this was the first moment. It's like, get some money into the business, go build something of value so you can get another shot at building some more. And so a lot of it was about telling a story about what this could be. And the vision is, we're democratizing access to personal training. In essence, we're building the self-driving car equivalent, but for fitness. We're going to guide you through your fitness journey. And in Tonal's case, that's the combination of really, really unique hardware, which we invented. 3.5 years bringing a product like that to market, 85 patents, data and AI that produce a level of personalization. When you work out on a Tonal, it's like you have a personal trainer with you. It's choosing how much weight you should lift. It's giving you feedback on your form. It's spotting you when you're struggling too much. You're hearing it motivate you and tell you when you need to try harder, or tell you can do it at the moment you, like literally, you'll hear Tonal say things to you like 3 reps left to go, you can do it. And because of that very moment in time, the data said you had 3 reps left to go, and the data told us you could do it. We knew you could do it. The data told us you could do it. And we just know that's the moment that we're going to motivate you with that particular statement, right? There's a level of personalization built in that. And in the US, you can go after about $60 billion a year of existing spend, market spend on gyms, and you can go after about another $10 billion a year that's spent on personal training. Those are dollars you can redirect. And it's really important when you're starting a business is, are you trying to create a new market, or are you trying to redirect dollars that are already being spent elsewhere? That was existing spend. We also know that with a product this versatile and data-rich, we can go after about $35 billion a year that are spent on physical therapy and rehab, which some of you already know about. We've talked about it. Another $60 billion a year spent on weight loss, if you can pair fitness and nutrition together. So massive pool of dollars. And so you go to someone and you say, here's something unique, here's something innovative, here's something that has never existed before. And literally over $100 billion are spent in the United States every year on these things. Do you believe we can pull this off, right? And can you prove that you can build something of sustainable value that other people won't just be able to replicate and copy? It's one of the reasons we started filing patents so early. It's also why we relied on core moats of things that can't easily be replicated. The reason we built personalization, built Tonal on personalization to give you the equivalent of being with a personal trainer, as opposed to entertainment, which a lot of fitness platforms work on. They run on, well, we'll entertain you and distract you from the fact that you're doing all this cardio. The reason we go with personalization is it's proven to drive engagement. And if you've ever been stuck in a TikTok doom scroll, the reason for that is because it's so damn personalized that you can't let it go. They know exactly what video you want to watch next, and it'll be one after the other after the other. That's the power of personalization. We have the highest engagement in the fitness sector. When tonals are used, they're on average used 40 minutes at a time. And if you are in the fitness sector and you can get someone to work out for longer than 15 minutes, you're a hero. And 40 minutes is a fall out of your chair metric. We also know that having the world's first digital strength training system now means we have access to data that's never existed before. Think about the fact that we have 100 years of physiology research. The vast majority of that data was collected on clipboards. That's literally what we're competing against. And if you ever make it to San Francisco, one of the weirdest things you'll notice is that there are self-driving cars just driving around the city all the time, just going in circles. They're not going anywhere. They're just driving around, collecting data to make the AI smarter. And now at Tonal, we've literally amassed the largest strength training physiology data set in history. Over 3 years of data on hundreds of thousands of people across gender, age, ethnicity, and the physiology that we use on our platform. When we decide what exercise you're gonna do and in what order and how much and what the dosing is, it's proprietary. The science around it is not public domain. It just, no one has had access to this much data before. And so you create a system where the physiology is proprietary, hence more effective, people get better results. You personalize it, they use it more and more and more. And what you end up with is a product that people buy, fall in love with, use forever, and tell their friends and won't stop talking about it. And that's an amazing formula for success. That was the vision. So the second challenge is you finally build some prototypes. We run some beta trials. We literally rented an apartment and put the very first Tonal prototype in it, handed out keys to 12 people, and said, we want you to come work out on this thing as often as you want. The only thing is we're gonna film it and we're gonna interview you. So we could prove that for 3 months, people would keep using this thing. And that was enough proof, like again, you're trying to prove this, that was enough proof that someone eventually gave us $10 million. And it turned out that $10 million was, that was enough money for us to get pretty close to launching the product. But things were more expensive, they took longer, and we needed more. Because we could have spent the last dollars we had getting the product off the manufacturing line, but we weren't gonna have any more money left for marketing. And you can't launch a product without marketing. And so one of the hardest funding rounds we ever did was we went and raised $30 million pre-launch. So I'm talking like now, we're like $12 million in. We spent $12 million. We're about 3 years in. The prototypes are done. The manufacturing lines need to be fired up, and we don't have enough money for marketing. And you got to go convince someone to give you money before you've sold a single Tonal. We were able to somehow miraculously find another one of those believers who led a $30 million round. And we bring this money into the business. We bring the product to market. We hire a team, because I want to be clear, I talk about this like 3.5 years of technology development. That was 100 people. This is one of the most innovative pieces of equipment ever created. I promise you, I did not build it myself. I built little bits and pieces of it. There were parts of the vision, some of the algorithms. The vast majority of it was built by lots and lots of other people. So, you're trying to scale. You're trying to build an engineering team. You're building a marketing team. I knew nothing about consumer marketing. I still know very little about consumer marketing. I have a lot more to learn. And for years, like for about 2 years, we had Tonals in people's homes. So you want to build something, you got to build a team, you got to prove that people will love it, and then you got to get ready for game time, right? And that was really the next phase of the business. And we launched, and people loved it. We've gotten thousands of mentions in the press. We've won dozens of product awards, some of the most prestigious product awards you can win. We won the Red Dot Design Award We won one of the Time Magazine's Best Inventions of the Year. Men's Health, Women's Health, Runner's World, just award after award after award. Truly one of the most innovative products ever created. It's often compared to a Tesla. It's often compared to an iPhone in terms of what we're able to build. And this is the state of the product when we launch it. So this ad. This was not something that was designed for TV. This particular ad. This ad was filmed to be put on our website. So when people come to our website wanting to learn more about Tonal, we would do a little bit more of an in-depth description of how this product works, right? You see someone like a LeBron or a Serena using it, but you don't really know exactly what it is. Now you're curious. This is the video you would watch.
Imagine a full body workout without plates or dumbbells.
Let's go.
Imagine thousands of workouts. Fingertips. Imagine getting stronger, faster. This is Tonal, a complete home gym in one compact design. It's the future of strength training. Tonal Strength Assessment intelligently determines what you're capable of, automatically setting the optimal weight for you. The simple push of a button activates up to 200 pounds of dynamic weight that adapts for you in real time, giving you the most efficient workout. And Tonal has a massive library of live and on-demand classes guided by expert coaches.
Halfway through, let's go.
Featuring everything from strength training, cardio, HIIT, yoga, and mobility. So no routine's the same. Tonal's advanced form feedback ensures the perfect form with every movement. So you get the most effective workout each time. It's the personal trainer that knows your limits, then pushes them higher.
Let's speed it up there. Come on.
Adaptive training, real-time tracking, dynamic weight, world-class coaching, and more. It's strength you can feel, results you can see, and you can only experience it on Tonal.
So we launched the product. We go through this big consumer launch. And then this next piece is something that I think I completely underestimated. I'm an engineer. If you remember, that was my background. And by this point, by the time we launched, I'd poured 3.5 years of my life building this technology, building this product, envisioning what the experience was going to be like, proving that if you put it in people's homes, they would use it, and not stop after 6 months like every other fitness product. And I think what caught me by surprise is I completely underestimated what the transition was going to be from being just a product development team, which is something I was really, really good at, to truly a full-blown company, where you actually need everything from marketing to finance to operations to human resources. And I was very much in that product and engineering leader type of mindset. And we launched, and it quickly hit me like a freight train. And I realized that we were just getting started, and I had so much more work to do to build out the rest of this business and all of these other departments. And you hire your first HR person, and the first thing they do is they look at you and they're like, "Hey, what's the culture at our company?" And I'm like, "What? we build cool stuff." And they're like, "No, really, like, what's the culture?" And you really have to sit down and start thinking about foundational things. You have to think about your brand and what really defines your business. Because it turns out that in consumer marketing and in consumer products, every little thing you do adds up to something in a consumer's mind. When BMW says they're the ultimate driving machine, every little detail of the experience of buying a car, buying a BMW, driving a BMW, owning a BMW, is all slightly biased towards being the ultimate driving machine. They will sacrifice the passenger's experience to make the driver's experience a little bit better. And they keep doing that until you get to the point where everyone actually believes this about them. And they come to expect it of them. And then when they don't do it, they feel violated. Right? That's what it's like to build a brand, right? To figure that out, build all that stuff. But what are you about, and how are you going to do that, and how are you going to prove it? So that was a pretty massive challenge. But, I will say it worked. It took time. It took a lot of energy. It took hiring hundreds more people. But this was a quote from our launch. Tonal knew my strength better than I did. If you're building a personal trainer, what else could you hope the New York Times would write about your company, about your product, right? The other thing we needed to do is understand how are we going to build a company that was going to continue to be sustainable and differentiated and ahead of the marketplace. And one of the things we realized is at the time we were starting to see this trend with connected fitness, where people are buying cardio machines, bringing them into home, and like literally having entertainment drive their experience on this product. And we had this thesis that everything you bring to market is eventually going to commoditize. Enough people will replicate it that it will create price pressure. And we had this belief that media and entertainment, like entertaining you as you bike, like on a SoulCycle, that was eventually going to get commoditized, and that a lot of people were going to be able to replicate that, and that wasn't really a sustainable moat. And so we were asking ourselves, well, what does this mean for Tonal? What is the thing we can build that no one else is going to be able to replicate for a very, very long time? And we realized it was the algorithms, it was the data set. Why? Because we built this piece of equipment with the unique ability to control resistance and dozens of sensors that could collect data that never existed before. That data led to smarter algorithms. Those algorithms couldn't be replicated by other people. So when you start to really boil it down to the essence of what have you built and why is this so valuable, and how can you keep investing in that area to build a larger and larger moat? This was our thesis, that the world would eventually become, fitness wouldn't just go to connected, it would eventually have to become intelligent and personalized. That's a core part of our mode. And so we actually define ourselves not as being in the connected fitness sector, but in the intelligent fitness sector. And we're the only ones in the intelligent fitness sector right now. And I knew that we had started to win this when I was watching TV one day and an analyst actually used the term intelligent fitness on the air. And I'm like, okay, finally. Years of beating this drum, finally someone gets it, right? And it's starting to happen more and more. As personalized as having your own personal trainer, right? What else could you hope for? And so how did we do it? I don't know how many people are interested in the core technology, but I'm just gonna say a few things. One is we recognize that you could generate resistance using electricity, and if you did that, the resistance could adapt to you in real time. So you're in the middle of a bicep curl and you're struggling too much. Well, we have dozens of sensors that are measuring everything you're doing, deciding how much you're struggling, deciding if your form is good or bad. And if you need someone to spot you, because the resistance is dynamic, it's digital, we can actually go adjust the resistance in real time, drop the weight. You can be in the middle of a 17-pound bicep curl and it'll drop to 16 pounds and then 15 and then 14 until you're able to finish that set with good form, right? That ability to react to all of those sensors, that's essentially what we built. That's the core technology of this product. And then we just kept building more and more software around that core technology to replicate everything that a personal trainer does for you. We ask you what your goals are. We give you a strength test to find out how strong you are. We're constantly evolving how much we're challenging you. We're motivating you. Even the content, even when you're doing a video on Tonal with a coach, that video is not pre-edited. It's actually being edited for you as you work out live. It's why you'll hear the coach say things like 3 reps left to go, you can do it. It's why if you're going faster or slower, the pacing of the workout will actually adapt to you, because we're actually editing the video for you in real time. And what that leads to is a product that has really, really high engagement, a product that's fueled by a subscription service where people pay us $49 a month to get access to all of that content and all of that intelligence, and a subscription service where no one actually ever cancels. On any given month, only 0.2% of our subscribers cancel. 99.8% of our subscribers continue on. Sorry. And to date, of all the tonals we've ever sold, and I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars worth of tonals, 99% of them continue to have a paying subscription attached to them. And the fact of the matter is, if you sell someone a bike, you sell someone a set of dumbbells, within 6 months, 80% of them are not being used anymore, right? And here we can create a product where actually a year later, 99% of them are still being used. That's what we've built. That was the amazing thing about it. And so that leads to the fourth challenge, is you've built this amazing thing, you've launched it, people love it. And now you gotta scale. You're being hit with, people want the product. You're being hit with unprecedented demand. And to make matters worse or better, depending on your point of view, it was both a blessing and a curse, COVID happened. And the day COVID happened, Tonal had 106 employees. And 24 months later, we had 750 employees. And hiring that many people in that short a time span, scaling culture, remember that thing, culture, that I didn't know anything about? Like actually scaling your culture, making every person you add understands what we're about and how we behave and what our values are, right? Scaling your supply chain. We went from 1 manufacturing plant to 3 manufacturing plant, delivering tonals nationwide, hundreds of thousands of them. That was really, really hard. That was a ton of work. And I will say that till today, it's fair to say our business hasn't recovered from the shock of that hypergrowth phase. When you grow that fast, a lot of things go wrong, a lot of things break, and we are still today trying to mend a lot of the things that broke during that hypergrowth. And so in many ways, COVID was a huge, huge blessing for us, but it was also a curse because it pushed us to grow faster than was healthy or natural. And by the way, if any of you are curious about this, there are some really, really good books by Jim Collins that talk about this exact phenomenon. The difference between companies who grow with discipline, regardless of what's happening in the outside world, and the companies who allow themselves to be kind of blown by market forces. Just if you guys are curious, just so you all understand, Tonal's a $3,500 product. And so a lot of people will look at that and be like, hey, that sounds expensive. That sounds like, how many people can really afford that? But what we're actually able to do is partner with a company called Affirm to bring financing programs, which allow our members to spread those payments over 48 months at a $72 a month monthly cost for the equipment. And that actually makes it far more affordable because anyone who spends $5 a day on coffee knows that they spend more than $72 a month on their coffee habit. And if you're committed to fitness, this actually is a really, really good deal. And the market size is just incredibly large. In the United States, there's about 120 million Americans that we believe are targets for this product, right? Or products like it that we would create. And so you have high price point product, very, very large addressable market. We believe that works out to about $60 billion a year. And to help us basically spread the word, build our brand awareness, we actually did a 3-year sponsorship deal with LeBron James and Serena Williams, 2 greatest athletes of all time. And this was a huge, huge deal because in many ways, we were at about 10% brand awareness. 10% of people had heard of Tonal. And after we did these sponsorship deals and launched those ad campaigns, within a matter of months, we went to 40% brand awareness. I've literally gone to a point where I could walk through an airport wearing a Tonal shirt and no one would say anything to me. And now I can't walk through an airport wearing a Tonal shirt without a TSA agent, a flight attendant, a passenger wanting to talk about Tonal, right? They've seen the ads, they're now curious about it. And so, so much more to tell you, but the company has grown tremendously. In 2021, we raised a $250 million round at a $1.6 billion valuation. Now, I want to be clear, valuations were really inflated in 2021, and that's a lot of freaking money. But the point is, we grew incredibly fast. We were able to make a real mark on the market. And we still have a very, very exciting and bright future ahead that we're continuing to work towards. And that vision of trying to create a personal trainer for the home that runs on technology, a digital personal trainer, that actually turns out to be a life's work. You can't actually finish that in a year or 2 or 3. And there was a moment where I realized that Google started having self-driving cars driving around their parking lot like 10 or 15 years ago. And now you see them driving around San Francisco, but they're not driving around Manhattan yet because that problem is still too hard. And so we're literally going to spend the rest of our lives at Tonal trying to perfect this idea of a personal trainer for the home. And that's kind of the story, right? And truth be told, I don't know what the future holds. I intend to run Tonal for the rest of my life. There will be more products. But more and more and more, I'm a father of 2 boys. My life is so much richer in so many other ways that I actually feel myself constantly being pulled in different directions. And it's just a blessing. So thank you for hearing my story.